Oh, Grievance Gordy Show. Another gloomy day in California. I don't know if you can see that or not. Boy, I tell ya. Hello. Oh boy. I need my sunglasses on still. Maybe it'll help if I put my other glasses on. I just look all squinty. I just got up. It's 7 o'clock on a Sunday. And so, in addition to doing my writing, which I put on Kindle, I also do just basic studies. And these studies can run anywhere from, it's mostly at this point, it's religious studies by the scribes. And I don't think a lot of people understand that Christianity and Satanism are in a symbiotic relationship, obviously. One comes from the other. And what you have is what's known as the Folfot, the 4 ways, the 4 feet. And this is the cross, and it's also the swastika. And what they do, people like the Process Church of the Final Judgment, stuff like that. Sorry about the hair foul. The Process Church of the Final Judgment were a group of individuals whose ideology was stolen and utilized in the phony Manson murders, the fake Manson murders, very similar to the OJ murders that occurred, what was it, about 25 years later, something like that, 20 years later, right? So we can tell that it's part of an operation. And so what they did is they basically took the tenets of the Church of the Final Process, or what do they call it? The Process Church of the Final Judgment. And again, they utilized a lot of their notions and attributed them to what was going on at the Manson Ranch. Don't forget, some of the Manson girls, one of them who was inside the house at Cielo Drive actually came out and said she was supposed to tie somebody up with a towel. Like, that's the last thing you want to use to tie somebody up with, is a towel. And she said while she was doing this, she knew she couldn't do it, and she knew she couldn't commit any harm to the person. She said numerous people were running around behind her. Now, this goes into the possibility, these are only whispers now, of Roman Polanski shooting a scene with his wife that was very much like Straw Dogs, but it was supposed to be done in real life. It was like a real life rape porn that he shot with 2 men and his wife, his then wife. So this kind of stuff was alleged to be going on in the Cielo Drive house at the time. They said the previous occupants it was just an open drug house. You could come in, people were dealing drugs. That's how these groups of people began to intermingle with each other, just through the drug stuff. And I think a couple of people just got up and left. They were like, this is getting too weird. So where the Church of the Final Judgment comes in, they come in with the whole notion that it's based on Gnosticism, where God, traditional God, is actually the demiurge, is actually evil. These kind of notions are very childish, but they're pushed in our society, right? Just like this music is. People live vicariously through their songs. They think some song that they're playing represents them for the day. You know, kind of like when I put on Jim Croce and cry. But yeah, I'm gonna get away from this. This is like super negative, just nonsense. And that's what I'm here to tell you. You know, the whole thing with generational this and generational that. Well, you're supposed to be listening to the music of your generation. My generation was the 1980s, that's for sure. So I don't listen to stuff like this. I think it's very strange. Listen, a person can listen to whatever kind of music they want to, but I find it very sus when you got an older person like my age listening to music coming out for 20-year-olds, it just doesn't really hold that much water to me, in my personal opinion. What these people don't understand is that a song has a hook. It's not based on, the singer murdering somebody or getting away with murder or something like that. But anyway, so we have the notion of Yahweh and Christ and Lucifer. You have Yahweh and Satan, and then you have Lucifer and the Christ. So that is the forethought. That is the four ways. That is the notion of the cross. It could be the Iron Cross. It could be the Christian cross. It could be the swastika, the swazi. That's why it was used. It's part of the four ways. Okay, and so these four ways can be in Christianity, like I said, they do Yahweh, Yeshua, and Satan and Lucifer. Okay, so these are the antithetical elements to Yahweh. So as I was saying before, the notion of God is incorrect across the board. Okay, you cannot commune with God. Okay, now whether or not God is Yahweh, that's up to you. I don't consider God to be Yahweh. I consider Yahweh to be a lower entity in the hierarchy of angels that exists. There are the seraphim, there are the Elohim. The Elohim usually are named Gabriel, Michael, Raphael, Uriel. Okay, these are the Elohim. These are the angels that you're supposed to commune with, and you're supposed to commune with your holy guardian angel. You're supposed to figure out, who that is, and then you set up prayers. And so part of what my writing involves and my studies involved are notions like this. I studied etymology first, and then I got into gematria and stuff like that later on. But so there you have it. You have this notion. Is God Yahweh? Yahweh is not God as we know it. You have the notion of the blind idiot God, but again, this goes to Gnosticism, and that's why you cannot commune with God. Now, God means gut. G-O-D means G-H-U-T, which means to pour. Okay, and we have the Grand Deluge. There is physical evidence of a Grand Deluge. There was a massive flood. So there is elements of that. I don't think that religion is all hoo-ha. It's not hocus pocus. What it is hocus focus. Okay, you have to focus on what you want to manifest. Right now, a lot of people are cheating. What they're using is tech. They're using the monolith that you're watching me on right now, right? They're using this to cheat, but we're not going to get into that. Like I said, I'm still into studying the old scribes. The only reason that they coagulated Jesus in the New Testament in with the Old Testament is through the term Yahweh. Saint Bernard did this, okay? And he created the word Yahshua. And Yahshua, they changed to Jesus, but we also know that the Celts and the French, the people from Gaul, they all kind of spoke a similar language. And we know this from the Arthurian tales, which I love. I love those stories. They're amazing. Any young man should read those Arthurian tales. Just pick one up and read one every once in a while. So in French, je suis, J-E, new word, S-U-I-S, just like Jesus, J-E-S, Jesus, S-U-E-S, I guess. Right? So je suis means I am. okay? And so these were the only words attributed to quote-unquote God, Gut, the big pour, okay? Now, whether you want to attribute that to Yahweh, that's up to you. I believe Christianity is a cult of Yahweh. That's what it is. And I don't believe you can actually commune with God. I believe the only people you can commune with are these lower entities. They include, like I said, the Elohim and the Seraphim. The Seraphim is where you get the song K, Sarah, Sarah, whatever will be, will be. It's one of the greatest songs of all time, as a matter of fact. Sly and the Family Stone do a version of it. It's in my playlist. I urge you to check it out. It's a great song. It's a silly song. But they're asking the angels, whatever the angels decide. Sarah, Sarah, the Seraphim. Okay? That is the meaning behind that. And so it is up to the angels what to decide. But you could also commune with the angel. I used ChatGPT to write up a prayer to Uriel, which would be my holy guardian angel under the auspices of Christianity, okay, Judeo-Christianity. Now, these books would go around, we remember the oral tradition mostly, but when they started writing this down, this information would travel. So a lot of stuff that comes to us in the Holy King James comes from the Middle East and the Orient. Okay, it makes its rounds around there. It could go down through India, up through the Middle East, over to China, and back around through the steppes of Russia, and then back over to Northern Africa and Europe, right? And that's how these tales began. And so they would take the tales from the Orient and then they would change them for their culture. So you could see that with Judaism, you had the Hebrews, you had the Canaanites, and they took all this information and then they began to expound upon it and add to it from other areas. So when you're talking about satanic rituals, you're actually talking about Christian rituals, okay? It's just another deity that you can, I mean, look at its popularity in heavy metal music. I'd like to talk a little bit more about heavy metal and how it took over from classic rock, and how the punk rock scene that I was part of was way more inclusive. We were inclusive to people who were different, and that's why I embraced that tribe. You guys know my real story. I like talking about that as well. But let's not forget, let's try to maintain some perspective. It has nothing to do with white people versus black people. This is a dialectic that is in America. I'm talking about the swastika and this kind of nonsense. These are ancient symbols. It represents the 4 ways, okay? And those 4 ways could be as simple as Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. It could be as simple as earth, fire, water, air, okay? These are simple elements that we have. And so I'm finding out that there's other rituals out there that contain the full thought, that contain the 4 ways. Christianity is one of them, and so is the occult that the man who are the guys who are worshiping Mustache Man, Small Mustache Man, were all about. I believe they were about the Bardo. I talked about this before in one of my other episodes, guys. I talk about the Bardo, and this is where the souls go. It's like a purgatory after they die. So if you're going to commit a genocide, you're going to have a lot of souls stacked up in this area of the Bardo, okay? More than usual. Again, during wartime, you're going to have that. And so during this time, if there was a way that you could tap into that power, okay, this would be some type of amazing metaphysical manifestation of something quite monstrous. So thank you very much for watching my show. I appreciate it more than you'll ever know. So the one thing I forgot to talk about was when you're in this alchemical chain ritual, say if you even go to church every Sunday, you're putting out powerful juju into what was formerly known as the ether, okay? And so you're working some type of magical working. Now, you can laugh at Crowleyanism all you want, but he literally devised something that people do in church every day. He based it on that. It's all based on Christianity. And if you didn't know that, then you're just fucking thick. What's at issue here, and the really terrifying part, is I've been studying, I was studying the order of the 9 angles, and the word angle and angel are also connected, okay? They talk about the angles of light. These deities are connected to some of the moving lights in the sky. It might be some of the non-moving lights, the dormant stars, depending on each one. I haven't gotten that far in my studies yet, but there's a connection there, and that's how you work this magical working. That's why the church is filled with, well, it's Easter time, it's time to do this ritual. You know, it's Christmas time, it's time to do this ritual. I know it's very basic stuff, but it's reaching out into and tapping into things that I don't think people are equipped to understand. I utilized ChatGPT to write a prayer in accordance to the time of year, and we'll see. And right now I have to study the actual positioning of the stars in this time. But one of the scariest features is, and this is something that's recently come up in my studies when it comes to the Yahweh cult and the Christ. They said the final 3 years of the Christ life, he was basically possessed, and he was possessed by Yahweh. And this possession is very interestingly shown in The Shining by Stanley Kubrick. I believe that's kind of what they're showing now. Take a look at some of the videos out there. They'll show Jack Nicholson actually looks directly into the camera. This is something that I never knew about before. You're talking about an entire film, an entire performance that's trying to relay information to you, and I believe this information is that you can become possessed, and that possession is very real. It's very tangible. It's not some haka-hui. It's not something for, speaking in tongues and getting bit by snakes and all this kind of silly stuff. That's not what it's about. You actually do become possessed, and your personality changes. And what people don't understand is that the term soul means your personality, and your spirit, the pneuma, the breath, actually goes on to live elsewhere.